With our fiscal policy. Remember we said fiscal policy is the use of taxes and government spending to correct or to manipulate the economy. So if we have to use taxes to correct the economy, it means there should be a plan. We don't talk about taxes. Government talks about taxes. So it means it has to be government policy. That's why it's fiscal policy. So for government to spend within the economy, or for government to think about certain amount of money it has to get through taxes, it needs a budget. So that takes us to government expenditure. So when I talk about government expenditure, I wrote the total planned government expenditure and the amount of money to be spent in each category is announced every year in the budget. So each year, for each year that passes by, the government of a country would have its financial plan. So a financial plan is the government budget. So what is expected to be spent over that year and what is expected to be received in terms of receipt through revenue and taxes will be discussed and be stated in that year. So our financial plan, the Libyan financial, for example, the Libyan government has its financial plan for the year 2025. So the financial plan will comprise the revenue, the expected revenue, and the expected expenditure. So it is always stated in the budget of a country. So that's why we have a budget. The budget is the financial plan of government expected revenue and expenditure for a given year. The revenue comes through taxes, mainly through taxes. And whatever government has to spend, it has to spend for the taxes it has made, the revenue it has generated through taxes. There's government spending and there's government revenue. So government has to spend within the revenue it makes from taxes. Do you get the point here, please? Yes. So what are those things government will spend on? Healthcare. You know healthcare, right? Government has, in the public hospitals, government has their doctors, nurses, equipment needed, health services. Government has to spend on this. There's always a budget for this. Education, we have the public schools, yes or no? So government would spend on them. There are teachers there, government will spend on them. Equipment for the schools, government will spend on that. They also have their own budgets. Defense, we talked about the armed forces. The country armed forces, we have the Navy, the Air Force, the soldiers, all these, it has to be taken care of too. So all these has to be part of the financial plan of the government, because this is what government has to spend on. And where does government get this money from? Through taxes, mainly through taxes. That's why we call it fiscal policy. Do you understand, guys? Great. So what are fiscal? So for fiscal policy, there are two situations about fiscal policy. Sometimes we spend more than what we have, there's a deficit. And when government spends less than what it makes, then there's a surplus. So we have fiscal deficit and fiscal surplus. So what is fiscal deficit, I wrote? This occurs when government revenue through taxes is less than government spending. So the amount of money government generated through taxes is less than the amount of money government spends. So government is spending more than what it has. So that's a deficit. Do you understand deficit here? Government spending more than what it has generated from taxes. So as soon as this happens and it continues to increase, then the national debt of that country will increase. If government continues to increase its spending and there's deficit, it will bring about national debt increasing. And if the national debt of the country is increasing, it means the amount of money the country is owing is increasing. Do you get the point, please? Great. So here I wrote, national debt, this is the total amount owed by a country. The national debt comprises the amount of money that is added to cover up for the missing out, the gap between the balance. We are spending more than what we have. So we can't give what we don't have, right? So if we have to give what we don't have, it means we have borrowed from certain individuals or certain institutions. So to cover up for that balance, the gap, government will have borrowed for that. And if government has borrowed money, it means the national debt of that country is increasing. Do you get the point I'm making here? Government has a budget, and the government has to spend more than what it has budgeted for. Then it has increased its national debt. And the problem about increasing your national debt is that it means the future generation will continue to pay these debts. And also the amount of money you have to continue to pay from the revenue you generate will not allow you to do other things within the economy, because you have to continue to service the debt. Do you get the point here, please? Great. Then we have fiscal surplus. When there's fiscal surplus, it simply means the amount of money generated from tax exceeds the amount of money government is spending. Do you get fiscal surplus here? I know, are you here? The amount of money government generated from taxes exceeds the amount of money government is spending. So if the amount of money government generated is more than the amount government is spending, they will call it what? Fiscal surplus. Do you understand fiscal surplus?
It's good for the government, right?
Yeah, it's good for the economy. So the surplus can be spent on healthcare, can be spent on education, can be spent on strategic areas of the economy that are needed. So a fiscal surplus is better off than a fiscal deficit. Do you understand? But also we have to think about a fiscal surplus, because as soon as there's fiscal surpluses, it will also bring about an increase in aggregate demand within the economy, because government spending will increase. If government spending increases, it might bring about inflation. Do you understand? So every now and then, government must be able to balance all things. So it's better we have a balanced budget than so much surplus or deficit.
Aggregate demand is
Aggregate demand, that's the total demand within the economy. You know, if there's surplus here, it means government has more money to spend, right? So as soon as there's surplus, government will increase its spending. If government is increasing its spending, it means aggregate demand will increase. And if aggregate demand increases in the economy, inflation will rise.
the result is like a flood.
Yeah, cyclical. Yeah. So if it's good that aggregate demand increases, but we have to understand that as soon as aggregate demand increases, it could bring about inflation. And a high inflation rate is not good for the economy. Because when inflation increases, consumers' disposable income, spending power would fall. The value for money would also fall. And as soon as the value for money falls, consumer spending reduces, the living standard would fall. Do we get it? Any question about fiscal policy? In the next class, we're going to talk this.
So, is fiscal policy a type of tax?
Fiscal policy is a government policy that brings about taxes to be charged by government.
Okay. And also, another question.
Yeah.
Before, we wrote about there's 3 types of taxes: direct, indirect,
And environmental, yeah.
We didn't write about environmental.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
We're still talking about direct taxes here, and we're talking about taxes. Tax would happen, but before taxes could happen, government would have imposed it. So government will impose it through policy, because for every government of a country, they have ways to impose or ways to come up with things they do. So they use policies. We have fiscal policy, we have monetary policy when it comes to exchange rate, interest rate. We have supply side policy when it comes to increasing the quantity or the output of the country. So there are 3 policies here. We have fiscal policy, which we're talking about here, which is taxes and government spending. We have monetary policy. For monetary policy, it talks about the interest rate, money supply, and exchange rate. Then we have supply side policy, which is targeted to increase the output of the country. We're going to get there anyway. But today, for now, because we are still on taxation, we're talking about the policies that bring about taxation, which is fiscal policy. Any question again?
And expenditure, it basically means like a budget.
Expenditure is spending, budgeted spending. It's, for your budget is about what you are expecting to, what is expected to get and what is expected to go out of your economy, of your money or of your purse. So what government is expecting, that will come through taxes. The subsidies, government spending will come from the budgets too. But it has to come in before government spends. So there's expected revenue and expected expenditure. So this is what fiscal policy is all about. And it comes through the budget. Any other question? Thank you.